Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the decision session for environment and climate change on Wednesday, the 5th of October. We have one major item, and here we have Ben Grabham, who's Head of Environmental Services, and I'm also joined by Margot, who's our Democracy Officer. Okay, so if we go through the agenda, the first item is declarations of interest, which is me. I have no declarations of interest. The second is the minutes. The minutes are a true record, and Margot, I've remembered to sign them this time. There you go. Third item is public participation. We have one participant, that's Andrew Mortimer. Andrew, can you hear me?
I can, Chair, thank you. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. Okay, so you have spoken before, and I know you know that there are 3 minutes. Over to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully it won't take that long. I wanted to speak on the main item, item 4, particularly relating to the additional recycling. And I wanted to support the officer's recommendation for taking on board the additional items such as foil and a number of extra plastic items so that they can be added to the mixed recycling box. I think this is a very positive step forward, and hopefully is another step towards recycling as much particularly plastic waste as we can at the roadside. I think in a lot of ways, many residents probably put some of these items in already, because it is quite confusing at times as to what you can and what you can't add to the recycling box. So the more that we can add in, then the less confusing it will become. In terms of the communication strategy, I think that's important to make this work. We've got to tell people what's happening. And could I maybe suggest one other thing that you consider, and that is to work with the city's universities. We have a lot of new students just moved into residential accommodation over the last few weeks in the city, many of which will have lots of recycling, I'm sure. So if we're to work with the universities, I'm sure they'll be able to pass the message on as well to try and make this as successful as possible. So basically, that's all I wanted to say, is just to support the recommendation and hope it's very successful. Thank you.
Andrew, many thanks. Your comments will be noted and worked on, but just for your information, I'm already in contact with, it's an operations group, I don't know why they call them that name, at the university, so that we can get the messages across, and very, very importantly, so at the end of each of the terms, our residents and their students work closely together so that we have a minimal amount of waste left around the street. That's the strategy we're working on. The pandemic got in the way of it, but hopefully this year we can make it more obvious what we're doing. But again, many thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now on to the next agenda item, which is, Ben, over to yourself to take us through your report, the Waste Service report.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Sorry. Thank you very much, Councillor Woodson, for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. The report touches on a number of issues across waste, but focuses primarily on the ability for us to offer an expanded range of recyclables that can now be accepted and processed for recycling. Some of these materials could not be placed in recycling boxes previously, things like foil, and some yogurt pots and margarine tubs. So we're expanding the offer to include foil and some plastics that have not been previously included within the mix. The reason for this is improved processing technology through Your Waste, and obviously changes within the recycling market in the UK. In an effort to try and make it as easy as possible for the public to know what can and can't be recycled, we are proposing on updating our communications package and trying to make that more visual. Some of the draft slides that we've got are actually included here. So again, trying to make it quite engaging, but actually quite simple for residents to understand in terms of.
And simple for me to understand.
Exactly, simple for everyone to understand, around making it more pictorial so that people are clearer on what can and can't be recycled. So just trying to make that message easier to communicate and easier to digest and understand. So in terms of that communications package, we'll be looking at getting that out as widely as possible. So we'll be updating our website, putting information in the Our City magazine, obviously all of our social media channels, and then any future changes that obviously happen in relation to waste, we can include updated information and comms in that. Obviously noting Mr. Mortimer's comments, and obviously we can pass all that information through to the universities and other sectors and bodies that may be interested. In terms of some of the other areas to touch on within the report, is just to bring you up to speed on the fact that we've extended the garden waste season in 2022. So we started the scheme earlier this year in March, as opposed to the April, which has been done previously. That's proved to be very successful in that it's led to a more gradual introduction of that material into the waste stream, which has obviously improved our collection rates and obviously the time of year at which that waste is presented. Previously, a lot of that material used to come out in April and cause us some operational challenges, but the extension of the service at the start of the year has proved to be very successful. The service is obviously going to run as well later in the year to the 9th of December. And then obviously we can appraise how successful that is with additional material that we might be able to pick up at that time of year, particularly useful for hopefully for leaf fall and then obviously the collection of leaves that come down. Some of the other changes then, just to, I suppose, to bring you up to speed on in relation to projects that are ongoing. We've replaced a significant part of the waste fleet over the past year. So we've had both some electric vehicles within the service, which we are continuing to evaluate, and more recycling vehicles, split back recycling vehicles. So it means that obviously when we collect all the recyclable material, the glass, tins and plastics, which are collected via two of the boxes, go in one side of the wagon, and the paper card, which is collected via the other box, then goes in the other side of the wagon. So we're keeping that material separated, which is obviously improves its value to the recycling market and obviously enables it to be processed much more easily. There are some other projects that we will continue to work on in the service. That is a look at our routing and rounding to make sure that our operational rounds are as efficient as possible. And we are doing a piece of work around the bags to bins project, looking at a number of properties that are currently served by a bagged waste collection and looking at moving as many of those properties onto wheeled bins as possible. And we're hoping to bring proposals forward in 2023 about that. As I say, the only other area to bring you up to speed on is the government's waste and resources strategy. As a council, we responded to the consultations that came out as a part of the strategy. There have been updates to the consultation for the extended producer responsibilities, which is mainly for those companies that produce the actual materials that which the products go in. The ones that will have the greatest effect on us as a local authority directly in terms of our collection being the proposals around potential food waste collections and commercial waste collections. They're still yet to be published, so that's still very much a wait and see what comes out of those. But as soon as we've received updates, we'll obviously bring reports to yourself then. Okay, thank you.
Oh, many thanks for that. I think you need to turn yours off now if you haven't, because I get told off when I forget. It's the only reason for telling you. An unbelievable amount of work is going on inside of the waste side. And Ben, can you please take my personal and the residents' thanks for everything you've done? Let's start with the unknown bank holiday that we had due to the Queen's funeral, and your team seamlessly delivered the service to the 90,000 homes across that week with not a blip in the service, with great communication. So many thanks for doing that. Extending the recycling and making it simple so that I can understand it is really, really important. Along with the fact that I can see on there that you've got cut your cardboard to fit it. We're not being pedantic when we ask that. The reason that we ask for that, just for anybody, if anybody is listening, is that if you put it in in bulk or in rolls, it jams the vehicle. So the vehicle then has to go back to base, even though it isn't full. So that's why we ask for that. I know, looking forward, that you've gone through the bags to bins, which will be fabulous. I know all the work is there, but we are awaiting on some of the trucks, so that when we've got the narrow base trucks, we can put in more of the terrace streets and we can make all of that happen at once. And our residents are really looking forward to that, because how 19th century is it to drag your bags through your house as they go all over the shop? And finally, I'd just like to say, the reason that we ask for the paper and the card to be kept in one bin and we can move all the rest of it, because of the technology, because of the work that you have done with our recycling suppliers, or processors rather, is that if it gets wet, or God forbid, if it gets glass on it, it's useless and has to be burnt. So that's why we ask for it to be kept separate. But just once again, many thanks, and absolutely agree to the recommendation. What are the words I'm supposed to use, Margot, or is that it? Can I accept the recommendations in the report? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. The one point I'd probably just like to make in response to that, and thank you very much for your kind words, is that I'll make sure that obviously that gets passed back to the team at Hazel Court. In terms of the changes themselves, subject obviously to your decision today, we would propose on going live on Monday, the 17th of October. That gives us time to obviously communicate the changes to Your Waste, who we work closely with in terms of processing the material. We need obviously to brief all of our collection crews on the expanded range of materials that we can now accept, and it allows us obviously to finalise the communications material. So on the back of that, we'll proceed with that work.
Absolutely. So, 17th of October is great. The faster we can get it into the schools, the faster that the children will nag their mums and dads to put it in the right place. So excellent. Nothing more to say, but thank you. Okay, so the last item on the agenda is urgent business. I'm unaware of any urgent business. So therefore, the meeting is closed. Many thanks.